There is a wrench sitting in a garage in rural Ohio. It has been there since 1961. It has never been sharpened. It's never been repaired, never been replaced. The man who bought it is gone now, but the wrench remains. His son uses it. His grandson uses it. When they pick it up, it works exactly the way it worked the first time, 60 years ago, on a cold Tuesday morning when a man trusted that what he bought would last. That trust is gone now, not slowly, not gradually. It was taken, deliberately, systematically, and almost nobody noticed until it was too late. Today, the average American household spends over $4,000 every single year replacing things that should never need. Replacing appliances, tools, machines, things that used to be built to outlast the people who bought them. Things that now barely survive the warranty period. And if you have ever stood in a store aisle holding a product, wondering why it feels cheaper than the one your parents owned, you already know something is wrong. You just never knew how deep it goes. Stay with me. Because by the end of this, you will never shop the same way again. Let us go back. Not far. Just 70 years. In 1955, the average American refrigerator lasted 25 years. The average washing machine lasted 18. Quality hand tool, properly maintained, lasted a lifetime and then passed to the next generation like an inheritance. These were not luxury items. These were standard expectations. A working-class family in Detroit or Cincinnati or rural Texas could walk into a hardware store, spend a reasonable amount of money, and know with absolute certainty that what they were buying would still be working when their children were grown. There was a philosophy behind every bolt, every weld, every hinge. It was unglamorous and unspoken, but it was real. Build it right, build it once. Let the product speak for itself for the next 30 years. The men and women who built those products were not chasing quarterly earnings reports. They were chasing something older and harder to measure. Reputation, legacy, the kind of trust that travels through time. And then, quietly, something changed. It did not happen overnight. That is the part that makes it so difficult to see clearly, even now. It started with a memo, not a famous memo, not a headline, just a quiet internal decision made in a boardroom somewhere in the late 1950s. That would eventually reshape every product category in the American market. The idea was elegant in its cruelty. If a product lasts forever, the customer never buys another one. But if a product lasts just long enough, just past the point of frustration, the customer comes back. Again and again and again. They called it planned obsolescence. Term so clinical, so corporate, so deliberately boring that most people hear it and look away. But strip the language down, and what you are left with is this. They decided to engineer failure into the products before they ever left the factory. They calculated exactly how long a motor should last before it burns out. Exactly how many wash cycles a drum should complete before the bearings give. Exactly how many charge cycles a battery should hold before it dies and cannot be replaced. Not by accident. Not by the limitations of technology. By design. Precise, intentional, profitable design. The refrigerator that used to last 25 years now lasts 8. The washing machine built to run for 18 years now fails before the financing is paid off. And every time something breaks, every time a family opens their wallet to replace something they replaced 5 years ago, somewhere in a glass tower, a number on a spreadsheet goes up. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is documented corporate strategy and has been running largely unchallenged for 60 years. But here's what they did not account for. Not everyone surrendered. While the major brands were racing each other to the bottom, optimizing for failure, hollowing out the craftsmanship their own names were built on, a small number of manufacturers refused, some because of stubbornness, some because of pride, some because the people running them still believed in something older than profit margins. They kept building the way their founders built, with thicker steel, with real copper windings, with mechanical simplicity that could be repaired by a person with 2 hands and basic tools, not a proprietary diagnostic computer owned by a dealership. These brands did not advertise loudly. They did not need to. Their customers found them the way people have always found the best things, through the quiet word of a mechanic who has seen everything, through the recommendation of a contractor who cannot afford to have tools that fail on a job site, through the inheritance of a machine still running in a barn that was built before the inheritor was born. They became a hidden list. passed between people who knew, guarded almost jealously by those who had discovered them, not because they were exclusive, because they were rare. Because in a market engineered for failure, something built to last had become almost contraband. Think about what that means for a moment. We live in an era of more information than any generation in human history has ever had access to. You can find a review of almost any product in 30 seconds. You can compare specifications, read teardowns, watch stress tests. And yet the products that consistently fail still dominate the shelves. Still collect 5-star reviews written in the first 2 weeks before the failure schedule kicks in. Still occupy the end caps and the sponsored placements and the front pages of every major retailer, because the system is not designed to surface what lasts. It is designed to surface what sells, and what sells is not always what works. The brands that build for longevity are not playing that game. They are not bidding for shelf placement. They're not funding influencer campaigns. They're not engineering their packaging to win the impulse buy. They are doing something almost radical by modern standards. They're letting the product carry the weight. And for the people who find them, it changes everything. There is a woman in Vermont who bought a chest freezer in 1987. It still runs. She has never had it serviced. The compressor hums the same way it did the year her youngest child was born. She has been offered newer models, smarter models, models with Wi-Fi connectivity and digital temperature displays and app integration. She declines every time. She already has what the new ones are pretending to offer. Reliability, the real kind. The kind that does not require a software update to keep working. There is a contractor in Texas who has been using the same set of hand tools for 22 years. He has replaced consumable blades when they dulled. He has replaced worn handles when the grip gave out. But the core of the tools, the steel, the mechanism, the engineering underneath, has never failed him. He has watched colleagues cycle through 3, 4, 5 sets of tools in the same period, has watched them spend more total money than he has ever spent on tools in his life. He says nothing. Just keeps working. These people are not nostalgists. They're not romantics. They are pragmatists who ran the numbers and found the truth that the market does not want them to find. That buying right once is cheaper, better, and less exhausting than buying wrong repeatedly forever. And this is where the list matters, because the names on it are not obvious. They are not the brands with the largest advertising budgets or the most prominent placement. Some of them are brands you have heard of, now operating under the radar of their own former fame, still building the way they always built, even as the industry around them decayed. Some of them are brands you may have never heard of at all. Names that exist almost entirely by reputation, passed from one careful buyer to the next. What they share is not a country of origin or a price point or a category. What they share is a philosophy, a refusal, a decision made somewhere in the history of each company to not participate in the race to the bottom, to absorb the market pressure, to resist the acquisition offers, to keep the tolerances tight and the materials real and the repair manuals public. That decision costs them market share every single year. It costs them shelf space and algorithm placement and quarterly growth numbers that would make their competitors. Shareholders applaud. They make that trade willingly. And their customers, the ones who find them, are loyal in a way that the fast failure brands will never understand. Guess loyalty built on genuine performance is not something that a marketing budget can replicate. Before we get to the list, there is one more thing you need to understand. This information has a shelf life. Not because the brands on it will suddenly start building worse products, but because the pressure on them is constant and it is intensifying. Private equity firms have been systematically acquiring legacy manufacturers for the last 15 years. The strategy is always the same. By the name, the reputation, the customer trust built over decades, and quietly downgrade the materials, offshore the manufacturing, extend the tolerances just far enough that the failure arrives after the warranty expires. Keep the logo, discard the soul. Some of the brands that would have been on this list 5 years ago are no longer on it. The product looks the same. The name is the same. The packaging is the same. The machine inside is not the same. And by the time most customers notice, they have already paid for the illusion. The list you are about to hear is current. It is accurate as of now. But pay attention, because the forces working against it do not sleep. These are the only 5 brands that still last. The first is a name that professional tradespeople have trusted for over a century. Not because of advertising. It's because of what happens when you take one of their tools apart and look at the engineering underneath. The steel alloy they use has not changed in 40 years. Their tolerances are tighter than anything else in their category at any price point. When something does break, every part is available, documented, and replaceable by hand. That is not an accident. That is a promise built into the design. The second survived a near-death experience in the 1990s, when it almost sold to a conglomerate that would have gutted everything that made it worth buying. A family decision kept it independent. Today it remains one of the last manufacturers in its category that still produces its core components domestically, with the same material specifications the company was founded on. The people who know, know. The third is not American. It never was. But it has served the American market for over 50 years with a consistency that domestic competitors abandoned long ago. Mechanics who work on their equipment have a saying about it. They say the only reason it ever comes into the shop is because the person using it finally wore out before the machine did. The fourth is almost invisible. No retail presence to speak of, no television campaigns. It sells almost entirely through professional supply channels and word of mouth. If you have never heard of it, that is not surprising. If you ask anyone who has used it what they think of it, they will tell you something that sounds almost impossible in the current market. They will tell you they are never going to replace it. The fifth is the most important one on this list because it represents something beyond just quality. It represents what happens when a company decides that its customers are partners rather than transactions. Their warranty policy alone tells you everything. They have never once used fine print to escape a legitimate claim. In 40 years of operation, they have never once lowered their material grade to protect a margin. That kind of record does not exist by accident. It exists because someone decided it mattered more than the quarterly number. And they were right. Your grandfather's wrench is still in that garage in Ohio. And somewhere out there, right now the companies on this list are building the things that will still be working when your own grandchildren are grown. Not because it is profitable, not because the algorithm rewards it, because some people still believe that what you build is who you are. The question is whether you find them before the market buries them completely. Now you know where to look.